The moment she said, "I make the rules here," I knew trouble had just parked itself in front of my house. One BMW, one blocked driveway, one woman convinced she owned the whole street. What started as a parking dispute ended with flashing lights, handcuffs, and an HOA president being dragged away for an outstanding warrant. Yeah. Welcome to Meadowbrook Commons, where power trips meet suburban justice. It was 7:30 on a Tuesday morning, that hour where the neighborhood's still half asleep and coffee's the only thing holding civilization together. I pressed my garage door opener, expecting my usual uneventful morning commute, and instead found a white BMW X5 parked dead center across my driveway. Not a wheel to the left or right. Perfectly positioned as if she'd measured the obstruction. At first I thought maybe it was an accident. Maybe someone's guest didn't realize it was a private driveway. But there was no note, no apology, just a shiny luxury car glinting in the sun like a smug statement. Mrs. Sterling, my elderly neighbor, was already out deadheading her roses. When I pointed to the BMW, she gave me that look, the one that says, "You're not gonna like this." "That's Vivian Ashford's car," she whispered. "She's at Fairmont's house HOA meeting. You know how she gets about her committees." Of course. Vivian Ashford, the self-appointed queen of Meadowbrook Commons. The woman who thought HOA bylaws were gospel and that she was Moses delivering them. I walked down the street to Mrs. Fairmont's house, trying to keep my temper on a leash. The door was cracked open, voices inside arguing over party decorations like they were negotiating a peace treaty. I knocked politely. The room fell silent. Mrs. Fairmont answered, flustered but kind. "Oh, hi. Adrian, what can I help you with?" Behind her, 3 women sat at the dining table surrounded by papers and fabric samples. One of them, a blonde in her early 50s, locked eyes with me like a hawk spotting prey. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, "but there's a white BMW blocking my driveway. I need to get to work." That blonde smiled tight, calculated. "The street's public parking," she said flatly, not even bothering to stand. "I have every right to park there." Her tone carried the arrogance of someone who's used to winning arguments by sheer volume. She tilted her head. "You're Adrian Morales, right corner house with the Honda." She said my name like she was tasting something sour. I kept my cool. "Actually, it's my driveway. Private property. I just need to get my car out." She leaned back, flipping through some papers like she was reading from a script. "You might want to review the HOA covenants before making claims about what's yours. That driveway extends into common space. Oh, and that camera system of yours not approved." There it was, the Karen special. Deflect, threaten, control. I took a slow breath. "All right," I said evenly. "Then I guess the sheriff can help us sort out these property lines." Her smile twitched. "There's no need to escalate things." "Funny," I said, pulling out my phone, "you parked across my property." I'd say escalation already happened. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. Deputy Palmer, a tall black man with calm eyes and a seen-it-all expression, surveyed the situation, ran the plates, and his eyebrows shot up. "Well, this just got interesting," he muttered into his radio. When Vivian finally emerged from Fairmont's house pretending nothing was wrong, Palmer greeted her politely. "Ma'am, are you the owner of this BMW?" "I am," she said, chin high. "What seems to be the problem?" "The problem," Palmer replied, "is that there's an active warrant for your arrest failure to appear multiple traffic violations." You could have heard a pin drop. The color drained from her face. "That's impossible. I'm the HOA president," she snapped. Palmer didn't blink. "Ma'am, please turn around." The handcuffs clicked and every curtain in the neighborhood lifted just a little higher. Watching her get escorted to the cruiser was poetic. I thought that was the end. But oh no, that was just Act 1. A week later, I found 4 envelopes in my mailbox, all from the HOA. 4 violations. Grass too high. Paint chipped. Trash bin out too early. Security cameras unauthorized. It was a masterclass in petty revenge. I called the HOA management company, spoke with Janet Harrison. The weariness in her voice said everything. "Mr. Morales," she sighed, "those citations aren't valid. Mrs. Ashford's been sending letters without board approval. None of those rules exist." That night, there was a knock at my door. And who else but Vivian herself, clipboard in hand, fake smile plastered on. "Mr. Morales," she began, "I'm here for a property inspection. Your violations require immediate remediation." I hit record on my phone. "Actually, Janet from the HOA management firm told me none of your citations are official. You're acting outside your authority." Her eyes flicked to my phone. "Recording private conversations without consent is illegal." "Not in this state," I said. "And this isn't private, it's harassment." She froze, lips tightening, then pivoted on her heel and stormed off her heels, clicking like gunshots. That evening, I got a text from Darius Holloway, the retired lawyer 3 houses down. "Come by tomorrow night. You'll want to see this." Darius's porch looked like a courtroom war room, stacks of manila folders, legal pads, a banker's lamp glowing over evidence. "Vivian's been running her own dictatorship for years," he said, flipping open a folder. He showed me photos, her unpermitted patio, her overgrown lawn, a shed way over the size limit. "She fines others for the same things she does. That's selective enforcement. Illegal." He handed me copies of meeting minutes, no record of board votes on any of her actions. "She's been approving her own regulations. And worse," he pulled out financial reports. "She's been using HOA funds for personal legal bills." I just stared at him. "You're kidding." "Wish I was," he said. "This is fraud, Adrian. We build the case, get board support, and she's done." That night, lying awake, I asked myself if it was worth it. Fighting an HOA president over a parking spot. Maybe I should just let it go. But then, I remembered Mrs. Martinez crying over fake fines, the Hendersons losing sleep over citations for their work truck, the way Vivian sneered at my last name like it didn't belong here. No, I wasn't backing down. When the next HOA meeting came around, half the neighborhood showed up. Standing room only. Vivian sat at the head of the table, posture perfect, voice sharp as ever. "I understand certain individuals have raised concerns about my leadership," she said, glaring at me. "Let's remember this community thrives on order." I stood up with Darius's evidence folder in hand. "Order's great," I said, "but fraud isn't." The room went dead silent. I handed out copies of the documents, her unauthorized fines, unapproved rules, the payments to law firms that had nothing to do with HOA business. Then I showed the photo of her own backyard, violating half the regulations she'd weaponized against everyone else. The whispers turned into gasps. Mrs. Martinez stood up. "She fined me for my flowers being too tall. Those rules don't even exist." Henderson followed. "She tried to charge me $200 for parking my truck in my driveway." The crowd's anger built like a wave. Finally, Janet Phillips, one of the board members, spoke. "We need an immediate suspension vote." Vivian's composure cracked. "This is a conspiracy," she shouted. "You people have no idea what it takes to maintain standards." That phrase, "you people," hung in the air like smoke. Mrs. Sterling rose slowly from the back. "What it takes," she said calmly, "is integrity. Something you never had." The vote passed 4-0. Vivian was stripped of her authority on the spot. She stormed out, red-faced, hissing, "You'll regret this, all of you." 2 nights later, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of my motion alert chiming. I grabbed my phone, and there she was, Vivian, dressed in black, creeping across my lawn with a can of spray paint in one hand and a crowbar in the other. I watched, heart pounding, as she slashed my fence, ripped out my plants, and scrawled "snitch" across my driveway. I called the sheriff immediately. "It's Adrian Morales on Maple Street. I've got a trespasser. It's the HOA president. I have it on video." Within minutes, red and blue lights flooded the street. Palmer's cruiser rolled up quiet but firm. He stepped out, voice steady. "Ma'am, drop the crowbar and step away." Vivian spun around, wild-eyed. "This is harassment. They're conspiring against me," Ma'am Palmer warned, hand on his holster, last chance. She screamed incoherently, swinging the crowbar once before realizing the fight was over. 2 deputies pinned her, cuffed her, and read her rights while half the neighborhood stood outside in bathrobes watching. As they loaded her into the cruiser, she yelled, "You've ruined everything. This community needs me." Palmer just shook his head. "What it needs," he said quietly, "is peace." Weeks later in court, Vivian stood pale and hollow, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of her power suit. She pled guilty to vandalism, harassment, trespassing, and embezzlement of HOA funds. 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation restitution for damages. When the judge read the sentence, I didn't feel triumph, just relief. Mrs. Martinez became the new HOA president, running meetings with transparency and kindness. The neighborhood started healing. But I never forgot the sound of those handcuffs clicking shut, the sound of arrogance collapsing under its own weight. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it parks right across your driveway and dares you to move it.